спросите меня там...
About 10 years ago, I would have definitely said I would never wear a hat. I couldn't imagine myself wearing it, and a baseball cap was the most I could wear.
Бейсболка, там, снэпбэк и все. Это, наверное, был мой предел. Но реакция моя, если бы я увидел...
My reaction to a person in a hat would be like this. Geez, why did you go out in a hat? Have you seen our weather? Do you not know how windy it is here? But I'd probably think that the person was not from Astana and that their intention was not to stand out, but rather to show off.
Даже больше, я бы сказал, выпендриться, да, наверное. Смотрят на меня иногда, потому что ты идешь по улице и ты ловишь взгляды людей.
People do stare at me when I'm strolling along the streets. I catch some weird glances too. Some people find it quite shocking, while others find it endearing. I think the most recent moment was the most memorable. I was on my way to work wearing a hat and enjoying the walk. It was a beautiful sunny day. Suddenly, a guy on a bicycle rode past me and I realized that he slowed down and turned around just to look at me because of my hat.
Притормаживает для того, чтобы просто посмотреть, обернуться на меня.
Such brave individuals who wish to express themselves in this way are rare. It takes someone with a vision and courage, someone who has been in megapolises and knows what it's like to be one of thousands. Being among this gray mass makes you want to stand out. While here, there normally aren't so many people on the street and almost no one wants to stand out. In New York, I witnessed what it was like to be really extra. I mean, I thought I was extra, while in fact, I wasn't. What I saw was really over the top. I usually put an accent on one thing in my outfit. In New York, I saw a lot of people who put on so many things and accessories that they looked like Christmas trees. And that, in its own way, is also really beautiful. I started to accept that this reality exists and consider such options. Aliya Zhamantayeva is a charming ambassador of creative industries in Kazakhstan, a woman who does not recognize any frames and limitations. Perhaps that is why her creative interpretations are so captivating and seem to exude a spirit of freedom and even boldness. Aliya is a designer, and it is difficult to define her range of interests. She makes jewelry, outfits, and enthusiastically works on her own line of eyewear. By the way, the first eyewear brand in Kazakhstan. Who knows what more her imaginative mind wonders about.
У меня очень много куча идей.
I have a lot of ideas, and sometimes I don't have enough time or resources to implement them. But I know that wherever I might end up, I can definitely create something. I can go to any place in the world, buy the simplest supplies, like a crochet hook and yarn, and create something. That's exactly what I did in New York.
Куплю самую интересную пряжу в этом магазине.
When I went there, I had absolutely nothing. All my supplies were left at home, and I started from scratch. I bought everything there and started creating. Sometimes it seems that Aliya is a true cosmopolitan. Her soul is open to the world, to the flow of events and new inspirations. She is drawn to the hottest and brightest points of world fashion like a moth. She also loves people and, in fact, enjoys being among crowds. So naturally, it brought her great pleasure to immerse herself in the largest city on the planet. Whenever I went out, I was curious how New Yorkers would perceive me, and I was very pleased by their reactions. I met many people. They took pictures of me. I was like some sort of a character in a hat. It's harder to stand out there amongst millions of people, but here, walking around by myself is not that exciting. I want to be surrounded by many people who wear hats. With each hat tells a story, and my hat appears to be the coolest and screams, "Look at me!" I'm all for that kind of hat display. Headwear is a special part of Aliya's work. And this is the case when the master did not choose the work. The headwear pieces themselves chose their designer.
Головные уборы
I've been into hats since I was a teenager. I have a very wide forehead, so I used to hide it all the time with bangs, and eventually started wearing hats. I wore all sorts of headwear, and my collection grew. It became my thing, and it affected my style greatly. I'm also into crocheting, so I started to create different types of headwear for myself. Sometimes I create pieces that are so complex that it's very hard for people to understand how I did it. However, a funny thing is that I cannot recreate such pieces, which is why my works are unique. There can be no copies because I don't remember how I did it. And even when people ask me to make something again, I don't do it the same way. I usually create something similar, but it can never be exactly the same. Such masterpieces never go out of style and can easily be worn every day while remaining 100% designer. What I try to convey is that my art is totally convenient for everyday wear. I create pieces that I can wear myself, that are comfortable and practical. They do not fall from my head, nor do they need any needles or anything like that to fit comfortably on the head. I don't want to worry about them falling off. It's important to me. Customers who purchase lavish headwear from Aliya truly appreciate its comfort of wear. Her clients are often very much like her, extraordinary individuals who constantly push the boundaries of the ordinary. According to Aliya, there are not as many of these individuals in Kazakhstan as she would like. Do we agree with her? Or can we acknowledge that everyone has the innate urge to rise beyond the bleakness of everyday life, just at our own moment? Or maybe, as our next hero puts it, getting to the hat takes maturity.
Надо сказать, что это вообще моя первая шляпа в жизни.
I must say that this is the first hat in my life. I hadn't been a fan of hats in general up until the moment this hat appeared maybe a month ago.
Месяц, чуть меньше.
It was such a risky move on my part because I'm used to wearing a baseball cap or something similar to that.
Бейсболки, то есть что-то такое в связи со своей...
I have this gorgeous curly hair, and considering Nikolay's work that I saw on social media, I got interested in trying it out and maybe acquiring a hat.
Видел его труды.
So I asked him whether a hat would suit me, and he said, why not?
Шляпа. Он говорит, ну а почему нет?
And here is Nikolay Belikov. He is a skillful hat maker who creates exclusive felt hats. It is remarkable that his working life appeared more mundane just a few years ago. An office, a desk, a chair, and a computer. But it seems that people with a creative drive and a spirit of independence will always find a way out, whether it be through nature activities or playing the guitar for fun. However, Nikolay wanted more than that. He made the decision to find a business that would suit him, preferably one that was highly specialized and unchallenged.
I've made some research and decided to start a business creating hats.
Трудности, наверное, были...
There were some difficulties, of course, such as material processing. The internet was not helpful at all. There was no information on how to do that.
Что делать, то есть именно чтобы получалось то, что сейчас получается, это...
It took me a lot of time to get to where I am now. Not weeks, but months of trial and errors.
Ошибок, скажем так, порчи...
So many materials were damaged along the way, but eventually I figured it all out.
Тем результатом, который вот сейчас имеется.
And the results are by all means amazing. It's a total success in terms of style and quality. The pieces are handmade and one of a kind, not to mention that there is something charming in this unique scuffs that appeals to the sense of touch.
Стиль, в котором я работаю...
There is no official name for the style I work in. I refer to it as retro vintage style because it combines the best parts of both vintage and retro fashion.
Ретро-винтажный стиль. То есть я объединил вот так два названия, ретро-винтаж и...
I guess rock and roll style can also be applied here. I make all sorts of hats with skulls in a distressed fashion. I feel more connected to this kind of stuff because I love rock and roll and rock music in general.
Поэтому, наверное, ближе к этому.
By the way, scuffs are not just a feature of Nikolay's hats. It's a technology that he's carefully honing with the intention of making the most of it, preserving it, and passing it on to future generations of craftspeople.
Уникальность именно заключается...
The uniqueness of my hats lies in the artificial aging of the material, which is as close as possible to the natural look. That is, if you take a hat in your hands, it looks as if it has been worn for decades or even has been through some military actions. That's the extent to which I usually work.
Я работаю. И вот это мастерство искусственного состава...
I gradually mastered and developed this technique of material distressing. Initially, it was one technology, which I studied and tried to work it out many times. I continued trying and honing it to achieve my goal.
Дальше изучение этой технологии, чтобы приходить к тому, чтобы при этом шляпа...
I wanted the hat to remain durable, wearable for a long time, resistant to damage. It is important that the hat is of excellent quality, despite the fact that it looks vintage and worn. This is what makes these hats unique. They seem to be old and shabby, as if they might fall apart upon touch. But when you take them into your hand, you realize that this is a durable product of high quality.
It takes 3 days to a week to make one hat. If there are several orders at the same time, the production time increases.
На мои шляпы...
My hats are not in very high demand. Probably it is a cost-related issue. My work involved a lot of labor, so the cost of hats is above average.
Все-таки выше среднего идет.
Considering the general demand for headwear in this area, classic hats, national headwear, baseball caps are more popular here, so the demand for hats is quite low. My hats are not yet in style, but I'm working hard on making them fashionable in Kazakhstan.
Listening to Nikolay talk about the average portrait of his clients, you can't help but remember what Aliya said about her customers. And you realize that to some extent, masters describe themselves.
Если брать конкретно мои шляпы, в целом шляпы носят...
Considering my hats specifically, they are as far from classical and traditional ones as possible. They are usually very casual, and some of them are even fairy tale-like.
Вообще сказочные. Поэтому, если...
Therefore, those who buy my hats are usually extraordinary people from creative spheres, such as musicians, rockers, bikers.
Рокеры, байкеры, то есть вот...
That is, the people who complement their image and their lifestyle with a certain accessory. That's the impression I got when I studied the target audience.
Такое впечатление, мнение, и вот когда вообще я изучал целевую аудиторию.
Alexander Oleynikov is a sports commentator. He considers the purchase of an unusual headwear to be a successful venture, although he was overcome by doubts until the last moment.
Честно говоря, когда мы вот шли с супругой, я говорю,
To be honest, when I was walking with my wife and said, "Let's go," she didn't even know that we were going to buy a hat. At that moment, I was excited and scared at the same time. I thought that when I tried it on, it wouldn't fit me and then I would be disappointed. There I was, overcome by fear that I was about to spend my money in vain. On the other hand, I considered it to be a valuable experience and maybe as a step which may push me further. Eventually, I was handed this beautiful headwear.
Дальше, да, нет. Ну и в итоге, когда я пришел...
Before I turned to the mirror, I had already noticed the delight in my wife's eyes. She was standing in pleasant surprise. So I turned to the mirror and thought, man, that looks cool and it is perfect for me. My wife was thrilled to see me in a hat. She admitted that she honestly couldn't imagine me in a hat before that moment.
Вот это прям сразу зашло. И она говорит, я классный. И она тоже говорила,
What can I say? I couldn't even imagine myself looking that good in a hat, but everything was perfect. I felt insanely happy to have made such a gift to myself. It reminded me of childhood when you receive a gift as a child, a bicycle, a scooter, a cool gadget that you really loved. I looked good in this hat and I liked it, and the result exceeded my expectations.
Thank you.